I'd like to call the Auburn Board of Selectmen's meeting. Today is Tuesday, May 28th, 2024, to order. This open meeting of the Town of Auburn Select Board is being conducted both in person and remotely, consistent with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, which suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed to participate remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For the public to join the meeting remotely by telephone, please dial 1-408-650-3123 and use access code 235-235-861. Or the public can join via computer at global.gotomeeting.com/join/235-235-861. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by Auburn Cable Television. Seeing no one out there, I'm sure the meeting is not being filmed or recorded by anyone else. With that, if we can stand and pledge the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We are now going to reorganize the board as the first meeting after the election. So with that, I will open up nominations for the chair of the select board. Mr. Corain?
Mr. Manager, I'd like to nominate Sarah Ruffley as chair.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote for the chair, for Sarah Ruffley. Mr. Corain?
Yes.
Ms. Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Chambers?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Ruffley?
Yes.
Thank you. It's unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And with that, if you can now, our chair can now ask for nominations for vice chair.
Okay, I would like to open up nominations for the vice chair position.
Madam Chair, I'd like to nominate Ann Kavanaugh for vice chair.
Is there,
Second.
through a roll call vote, Mr. Corain?
Any other nominations?
Oh, I'm sorry, are there any other nominations? Seeing none, through a roll call vote, Mr. Corain?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Chambers?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
And the chair is a yes as well. Okay.
And we got to move spots.
Okay. Ooh, when we come back, yeah.
Okay. So there needs to be a motion to go into executive session in accordance with MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to deliberate on matters which, if done in open meeting, could detrimentally affect the position of the town regarding strategy with respect to litigation. Once we come out of executive session, we will reconvene in open meeting. Is there a motion?
Motion?
Is there a second?
Second.
This is also a roll call vote. Mr. Corain?
Yes.
Ms. Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Chambers?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
The chair is a yes as well. Open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body relative to collective bargaining and litigation, and that the board will reconvene in open session following executive session.
right?
Okay. Okay, we are reconvening an open session. We did the Pledge of Allegiance already, so we are at number 6, public comments. Ms. Goodrich, would you like to come up? Please state your name and address.
What's that? Oh, are they meeting over there?
Doreen Goodrich, 5 Lowenberg Drive. So I was watching at home, and your 6 o'clock meeting when you started, and I said, you know what, I really want to just come down here. So congratulations to Sarah and to Dan on your reelection. The voters have spoken, and obviously, they believe you're doing a great job, as I do. But congratulations to you both, and congratulations, Ann, on being elected vice chair.
Thank you.
Makes a woman happy to see 2 women sitting up there. And I hope I'm not stealing any of your thunder, but we really do have a quality professional board sitting up there right now, and the residents are very fortunate to have all of your experience. But I do also want to call attention to and congratulate Mr. Corain, and I want to make sure I get it right, on receiving the Professional Manager of the Year, Transportation Sector by the American Public Works Association. And that's a significant accomplishment. You know, so again, I was sitting home at 6 o'clock, watched the reorg, watched the newly elected board, looked at the, and Steve, I don't want to forget you, but you were included in everything. But really, congratulations to you all, because sometimes it's really easy to get caught up in the negativity, especially on social media. And if the residents really saw how hard you were working for them, I think they would kind of take a little different view of that. So that's all I have to say. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations, Todd.
Okay, so we are moving along to number 7, presentations and public hearing. We have a Fiesta Shows presentation.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm John Flynn. I'm the Vice President of Dean & Flynn, Inc., doing business as Fiesta Shows. Here before you tonight to request permission for a carnival back over at the Auburn Mall.
Do board members have any questions?
I want to note that our DCG, Development Coordinating Group, has reviewed their entertainment licenses application for Fiesta Shows, and the group has indicated the following conditions should be included on the license, so that will be part of our motion to approve the, to approve or deny any
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just a reminder that this is scheduled as an open, a public
Oh,
hearing, so we need to...
thank you.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Thank you so
Second.
much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The chair is a yes as well. Thank you so much for the information. Is there anybody in the audience or online that has any questions? It is an open hearing. Okay, are there any board members that have questions?
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The chair is a yes as well. Is there a motion on the license?
Yeah, I would make a motion that we approve the license, provided that all applicable requirements of the state and town and any of its departments, boards, and commissions have been fulfilled. Said license is subject to all the conditions stated upon it. Failure to comply with any and all of the conditions shall invalidate the license and render it null and void, and with the conditions recommended by the DCG to be placed on the license.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The chair is a yes as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have a presentation from the Small Business Administration Disaster Relief Program. Hello, everyone. Hi.
present the Small Business of Administration Disaster Program for homeowners, renters, businesses, and nonprofit organizations. I'm here due to the severe storms and flooding that took place back in September of 2023. I do apologize for our tardiness, but we made it. And I'm here to present disaster programs for homeowners, renters, businesses, and nonprofit organizations. For the home loans, they can go as low as 2.5%. Business can go as low as 4%, and nonprofit organization has a fixed rate of 2.375. And on the business, they can borrow up to $2 million. They do not have to have any physical damages. The damage comes in the economic injury. And if your county may have, well, it is a primary county, so I'm pretty sure you all suffer physical damages. But just to say, if they did not suffer any physical, they would still be eligible to apply for economic injury due to retail or sales may not be up to par as they were before. Homeowners can borrow up to $500,000, renters up to $100,000, and nonprofit organizations $2 million. Now, with this program, there is no payments nor interest for the first 12 months. You can borrow up to $25,000 unsecured, and it's a real good program to help you get back to where you were before the disaster took place. So I provided you with some handouts, and if you have any questions or concern, you can reach out to me. Ms. Sharon has my information. Again, at this time, I will open the floor if anyone has any questions or concern.
Thank you. Do board members have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to ask, Mr. Manager, if you can make sure that our economic development staff takes the information provided tonight and gets it in the hands of not just the chamber, but any other businesses that they're in contact with, to make sure that they know about this great program and they can take advantage of it.
Happy to do that, yes.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Thank you
All
so
right,
much
thank you for
coming.
your time. Have a good night.
Thank you. Next, we have departmental items. The Household Hazardous Waste Day.
Hi, good evening. Congratulations. Thank you for allowing me to let you know it's Hazardous Waste Day year. Very excited about this. So as you may remember, we have the Household Hazardous Waste Day event every 2 years, and we are holding this event on Saturday, June 22nd, for Auburn residents only, from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. And we're trying something a little bit different this year. Normally, for the past 10-plus years, the FMC Ice Arena has been gracious to allow us to use their parking lot. They have some parking and pavement improvements going on this year, so they weren't able to secure that would be available for us. So we are holding the hazardous waste event in several locations for town buildings. So the actual hazardous waste drop-off event is going to be at our DPW at 5 Millbury Street. We will have the electronics provided through the Masons, as we have done in years past. And the electronics drop-off will be right outside here at Town Hall in our parking lot here. The fire chief has been gracious enough to allow us to have propane tanks dropped off at fire headquarters at 47 Auburn Street. And finally, we have the Scouts troops They are going to be doing textiles, clothing, bottles, and cans. This is a very busy area, and they are going to be located at the public library. We thank the library director, Gene Collins, for allowing us to have them set up there. So we're hoping that by having this kind of spread around town a little bit, it will help divert traffic so that we don't have too many long lines. It is just a couple of hours on a Saturday morning, so we think that is doable. And again, this event is free for Auburn residents, which is really a really great service. We're very excited about it. A lot of coordination goes into this, and I'm very proud of my staff to be able to, be able to coordinate each one of these, their kind of mini events around town. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. We are asking residents to just bring their ID when they come. Normally, a lot of these things would cost a fee if you were going to go to a private company to drop these things off, but for the hazardous waste, the propane tanks, the clothing, bottles, and cans, those are all free. The Masons do charge a small fee for the drop-offs, but that money is used for their charity. So I think they use it as a donation. Happy to answer any questions for you.
Board members have any questions? Please.
Do we know what the Masons charge, or will it be on their website or anything?
Yes.
Further information?
I believe we just got their price listing in recently, so we will post that on the website if it's not already there.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you very much.
One more, on the propane tanks, empty, full, it doesn't say, so I think that's,
Yeah, great question. So we'll take them full or empty, and they
Okay.
are going to be the regular grill size. So I believe that is a 20-pound maximum. So we don't want somebody dropping off like the big, huge tanks that you may use for camping. So it's the regular grill size that everybody has. If anybody has any of like the smaller ones, because I understand you can use those for like maybe hibachis or something, the smaller ones are okay, but it just can't be bigger than the grill size.
thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may, Darlene, can we make sure this is put in our informational kiosk downstairs?
Yes, absolutely. And it is on the website, cable access, and we'll add it to the billboard downstairs.
Are there any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Moving to 8B, there's a public health shared services grant renewal. This is you as well?
It's me as well.
Excellent.
Thank you very much. So we have as part of the Public Health Excellent Grant through the state, Mass Department of Public Health started this during COVID, and it's an encouragement for boards of health to rely and communicate with each other. That started kind of naturally during COVID. A lot of boards of health were kind of in the same situation where we were trying to figure out how to best serve the public in getting vaccines out. So that was a normal progression. As that kind of continued and boards of health kind of had open lines of communication, the state came up with public health excellent grants, and that encouraged boards of health to form kind of groups, not always contiguous towns, but in our case, we have 6 towns that are part of our public health excellence group that has been going on for the past 3 years. So it's Auburn, the host community is Webster, Oxford, Brimfield, Dudley, and Southbridge. So we have been meeting regularly for the past 3 years. We've done a lot of really helpful things, items like collaborating on standardizing forms, inspections. We were able to hire 2 regional inspectors to help with a myriad of inspections. We have somebody that helps with food inspections, housing inspections, very, very helpful. We also have a community health coordinator that works on a lot of big housing and homeless, helped us with new immigrants that had come to town. So this is, I'm sorry, I should have started with this, it's free. So it's a free grant. The first 3 years was $300,000 for the grant, and I believe it's gone up to $504,000. So this IMA, the intermunicipal agreement for local public health services, is to continue 3 more years, and again, for free. There is no fee for us, and we're hoping that continues. But the state has made it a priority to try to further public health and being able to get help directly to boards of health and the community.
Do board members have any questions?
No questions. I just want to note that there's a typo in the agenda. The agenda is for $504, which was surprising to me. I'm very happy to hear it's $504,000.
Thank you. Yes, missing a zero, I see that now. So $504,000, up from $300,000. And again, this will take us into the next 3 years. And again, it is noted, I believe on page 4, there is no fee for the municipality to participate.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
So is that Auburn gets that, or it's shared, that 504 is between?
It's shared between the
Between
towns that I
everyone. Okay.
mentioned, yes.
Sure, I understood that piece.
Just one question, Madam Chair, if I may. How many hours do we usually get out of the grant?
Great question. So it's not an exact every week, but typically we have a regional inspector in town for 1 whole day. And then as emergencies come up, we had an emergency come up last week, we'll call them into town on another random day. There's follow-up inspections sometimes that happen from the 1 full day. If there's an emergency inspection that requires a follow-up, that's not going to wait until the following week. So I'm going to estimate, again, it's not an exact, anywhere from 10 to 15 hours a week.
And if I recall correctly from the original, they have a dedicated vehicle through this service, is that correct? Or am I wrong on that?
Yeah, we do not provide any of our vehicles, and actually, I'm glad you're asking that. So because Webster is the host community, Webster takes care of all the, like, the payroll, the benefits, if there's mileage, like, we don't have to handle any of that. They handle all the administrative. Of course, the municipality gets like a stipend for doing that, but they handle all of that. We just get the benefit of having the inspector for, certain times and for events, that sort of thing.
How do they identify themselves? If they're not in a vehicle, how do they identify themselves to anyone that they might come into?
Wonderful. So they have a badge. So it's a inspector badge similar to the ones that our inspectors wear, and they do have cards as well. Typically, the inspections that are being coordinated are, like, we know when the inspector is in town, basically what places they're going to be inspecting. Right now, actually, I think today, they were in town for a housing inspection earlier today, which was scheduled through our office. So the person that is having it scheduled is speaking with our staff. They're identifying there's going to be a regional inspector, and they'll be here at this time. So it's coordinated through our office, so it's not like somebody just showing up without any identification.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure, because they're probably used to seeing a town vehicle now, in town uniform, for
Yes.
lack of a better word. So I just want to make sure that people are aware that they might get some people.
Thank you.
And they might have something a little different, but it's okay.
And also, one other thing I might add is we have a new health inspector. As you may remember, we have promoted Tim Pratt from another position in our department. So he's a health inspector, and he's sometimes going out with the regional inspector to see things that maybe you don't see all the time. So it's a helpful learning experience as well.
Thank you.
Great. Are there any other questions? This is a request for a vote. Is there a motion?
Yep. Make a motion that we vote to accept and expend a grant in the amount of $504,000 from the Mass Department of Public Health to support regional positions through the South Central Mass Partnership for Public Health, SCMPPH, including a community health coordinator and regional health inspectors.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? The chair is a yes as well.
Thank you very much for your
much.
support.
Do we need, I also make a motion that we vote to sign the intermunicipal agreement.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The chair is a yes as well.
Thank you.
so much. Thank you. Next, we are moving to a request for a board vote to accept an act relative to retirement benefits for EMT.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So tonight, as you know, I sent the board an email last Friday when your agenda went out, but I'm asking the board this evening to accept Mass General Law, Chapter 467, which came from the Acts of 2008, relative to a local municipality recognizing their emergency medical technicians, which includes paramedics, into Group 4 status. The way that the retirement provision works now is they are Group 2, if not voted by the local Board of Selectmen into Group 4. The reason for this request is in an effort to continue to try to recruit the most qualified people. We're actually negotiating with the union currently to possibly create a single paramedic role within the department. And if that were to occur, it's imperative that our employees have parity across the board in terms of benefits, both retirement benefits as well as injury benefits. It is my intent that this fall, I will be asking town meeting to adopt Mass General Law, Chapter 111M, which would give emergency medical technicians and paramedics the equivalent of 111F, injured on duty benefits. Again, it's a parity issue. You should not have two employees that would be working in an ambulance that are in a different pension group and a different medical benefit group in terms of injured on duty. So it's important that if we bring these single-role paramedics into the department, that they're not treated or viewed as second-class citizens. So this would be an effort to create parity across the board with all employees. As I mentioned in my email, because this is Mass General Law, this is not an approval process that Worcester County Retirement would have to adopt. It is Mass General Law. The only thing that they require is just proof that the local Board of Selectmen adopted Chapter 467. And as mentioned, there is no cost to the town for adopting this chapter.
Thank you. Do board members have any questions?
So there's obviously a difference in their benefits. Why would someone want Class 4 rather than Class 2? What is the difference in benefit?
Sure. So Group 4 employees, which is designated for public safety, and not to dive into the deep history lesson of the retirement board, but Group 4 is what's classified as public safety, which would be police and fire, are Group 4 employees, which allows them to retire at the age of 55 with 32 years. It's a combination of 32 years of service at 55 years old. And the reason that is designed is because the longevity in the public safety career as you get older, it just becomes a much more difficult job. It's a physically demanding job. Back in the 50s, when the retirement law was established, emergency medical technicians and paramedics were classified in the healthcare field, which was Group 2, so nurses and things like that. The law, as it's still written today, refers to them in the retirement law as ambulance attendants. We haven't had ambulance attendants since the 1960s, so in some respects it shows you how outdated the law is. But what this does is that over time, emergency medicals and technicians, they are now in the public safety vein within the Commonwealth. You know, we think of public safety as police, fire, and EMS. So this would give the same retirement, this would allow an EMT or a paramedic, when in Group 4, to be able to retire on the same retirement schedule at 32 and 55 versus 65 with those 32 years. So it's really just recognizing, and that's why the act was created back in 2008, it's recognizing that emergency medical technicians and paramedics are no longer in that healthcare vein of Group 2, and they should be recognized as Group 4 employees, but they wanted the local municipalities to make that decision if they had Group 4, because some communities run a municipal ambulance service that's separate from the fire department. So all of our employees right now are Group 4 employees by virtue of their position as sworn firefighters. But take the town of Leicester, for example, they have a municipal ambulance service that is separate from the fire department. So when they created the Act of 2008, they just wanted to give local municipalities the option that if they were in that boat where they had a municipal third-party ambulance service, that they could vote to put them in that public safety vein.
And how many, I'm going to get this wrong, how many paramedic-only employees do we have?
So we currently do not have any today. As I had mentioned in my email on Friday, we're replacing our EMS coordinator who resigned several months ago, Mr. Sparks, who took the EMS chief job in South County EMS out in Western Mass. We have the assessment center to fill his position on Thursday. That is a non-union civilian position within the department. So we do have 2 department members who are competing for that position. So whoever is selected for that job, providing this passes, they would remain in their Group 4 status. If this doesn't pass, then they would go from Group 4 to Group 2, which means both of these employees have been here longer than 20 years. It means that now they would have to add an additional 10 years onto their planned service time within the department. So currently, we do not have any. We anticipate, we will have one at the end of this week when we name the EMS coordinator, but we're negotiating with the union that in the next round of hires that we make in the future, this would give the department's administration the ability to seek a single-role paramedic versus a dual-role firefighter paramedic.
Is that, the skill set is obviously different. Does that come with different wage, like
So
scale
that's what's
on it?
being negotiated now with the
Okay.
union.
Thank you.
So I'm inclined to support this in general terms with respect to the type of work they do, and seeing them, on that level of, like you said, of public safety with firefighters and police. The only questions I have, and I apologize for not getting these to you sooner, I don't think we're going to be able to answer tonight and digest. So one of the, and I'm going to make a motion to hold this if my other members agree with me, but some of the questions I have, relate to the implications of the annual retirement contribution the town has to make. Is that higher for Group 4 than Group 2? When we start rolling out Group 2, is currently Group 2, would be Group 4 if we adopt this when we go to paramedic only. Are there any implications for our OPEB liability with respect to comparing Group 4 and Group 2 employees, whether they're current or future employees. Additionally, in terms of, it doesn't affect current personnel, as you said, because all of them are paramedic and firefighter. So that, one of my questions was, what's a retirement implication on some of our current personnel? But that's not relevant until you fill the position this week or next week. And then the last thing is, I would like to see other communities, at least in the Worcester retirement system, that have done this as well, or statewide, where are we stacking up comparing to those other communities that have considered this and taken this action. Again, I'm inclined to support this, but I just want to make sure that we have all of the information, all of the possible implications, so that we make that decision. We made it an informed decision based on all the factors.
Through the chair, I can answer some of those questions tonight. So relative to, let me start with what communities in Worcester County Retirement has adopted this. I will tell you, we will be the first. And the reason for that is because, Worcester County Retirement, as opposed to other retirement boards across the Commonwealth, tend to be a little more conservative in terms of what they allow and they don't allow versus other retirement boards. I had to appear before the Worcester County Retirement Board twice to get them to recognize that this was Mass General Law and that they did not have a choice, because this past November, they told me, we don't recognize the provisions of Chapter 467. And my response was, you don't have a choice to recognize 467. So they did their due diligence. They spoke with PERIC. They spoke with other retirement boards across the Commonwealth who do have departments that have 467 adopted. They spoke with their own attorneys, and they realized that, in fact, it's not a local option for a retirement board. So you will not find a community in Worcester County that has adopted this, because Worcester County Retirement, they believed that this was a local option that they had. They have now since been corrected on that. The town of Bellingham, recently, within the last couple of months, their board took a very similar vote to what I'm asking you to do tonight, and they've hired their first paramedic, single-role paramedics, and integrated it into the department. This is the future. As it becomes more difficult to recruit dual-role firefighter paramedics, this is what fire chiefs across the Commonwealth are looking at as a model, because it's, and you've heard me talk about this before, the pool is getting very thin, and you have people who either just want to be a firefighter with no medical background, you have people that are extremely good at practicing medicine that don't have a desire to be firefighters. Departments have to start looking differently at how we're recruiting members into the department, and that is why myself and Chief Purcell out of Westboro, that's why we tackled this issue with Worcester County Retirement back in November. And we were glad to see that they came to the conclusion that they did. I do have, a handful of references that I provided to Worcester County Retirement on other municipalities that have done this. This is going to, there's a lot of departments in the area that are watching what we're doing tonight. Because I think in 5 years, maybe even sooner than that, these conversations are going to be normal conversations that municipalities are having. So this is, like I said, what chiefs across the Commonwealth are sort of looking to at this point. Because again, as the job gets more complex, both on the fire and the EMS side, chiefs are looking at how to recruit people that can become subject matter experts in particular areas, instead of trying to diversify on what is becoming an extremely complex profession as technology grows, as times change, things like, battery and solar technology. There's not a week that goes by that there's not some new challenge that's thrown our way. And this is how chiefs, not only in the Commonwealth, but nationwide, are trying to tackle these issues. As far as the cost goes, one of the things that, and I don't know the answer to the question in terms of the difference between Group 2 and Group 4. I will just say this, that it's a cost that's going to be borne onto the municipality regardless, because whether I hire a single role person or a dual role person, we're going to be contributing the same retirement contribution to Group 4. So even if the board, for whatever reason, chose not to adopt this, I think it's going to be very difficult for us to recruit single-role employees into that. So it might just thwart the plan, which would force us to just continue to try to muddle along and try to have the firefighter paramedics, which ultimately are going to be Group 4 employees. So in my mind, I understand your point in terms of like seeing what the difference is, but in my mind, we're going to have the requirement of the Group 4 payment anyway, because whether this is adopted or not, the person who's going to fill that role is going to most likely be a dual role firefighter paramedic who's already Group 4, if that makes sense.
Do board members have any other questions?
Yes, just a couple of comments or questions. So even though the contributions that, the initial cost to the town would be the same, whether you're a Group 4 employee or a Group 1 or 2, Group 4 employees are able to retire a lot earlier. So therefore, they would be receiving retirement benefits for longer than someone in another group. So there would definitely be an increase in cost to the town, an increase to our assessment.
There is, but that's borne on when the board votes to authorize the hiring of new employees. Right now, that's borne in the cost of that, because whether I hire a single role, if this were to pass, whether I hire a single role or a dual role, that contribution factor is built in.
So we would have to pay more in the future, though, because these people get to retire earlier. Does that make sense?
You're paying that now.
The other thing I want to mention is that Mass Municipal Association has opposed bills that would move municipal employees into different retirement groups and increase their pension and health liabilities because of the costs that would be incurred by the communities. So that's just a comment I want to make here also.
Sure, I think we have someone in the audience that would also like to make a comment. If you would like to step up to the microphone, yeah, sure, just give your name and address.
Hi, good evening, Robert Tatro, 4 Ridgewood Drive. I really wasn't planning on speaking of this, quite frankly, until I heard the conversation. I am a Group 4 retiree. I retired from the Sheriff's Office. I can answer quite a few of the questions that you have, or maybe some of the concerns as a citizen. So it's 20 years, it's 55 years of age, 32 years, and it's 80%. It's not a full 100% retirement. I think that's kind of significant to talk about. The reason why these people are allowed to retire, Auburn's not a small community anymore. We have a motorcyclist just killed on the Mass Pike 2 days ago. That person was probably in really rough shape when those people arrived. And it's not something that's casually that you see on the side of the road, and people will say, well, you get used to it. It's not that you get used to it, it's because you become scarred, and you become really stressed out in a different way, so to speak. So it's kind of hard to understand why I advocate for this, I guess, if people think it's going to cost more money and all those kinds of things, but in the long run, it's really not. And if you're not going to get quality people, that's what's going to cost you in the long run, realistically. So a firefighter paramedic, in my eyes, is not, it's almost a triage nurse on site, right? They have ability to start lines, they have ability to give life-saving drugs and perform, amazing acts of first aid on the side of the road if necessary. Pulling people out of houses, rescuing cats out of trees. It's kind of the whole thing. We've already committed to this new public safety complex, and eventually we're heading towards a new police department there. I just think that's kind of part of what we have to do and grow as a community, to be quite honest. It's difficult. I know, nobody wants to have any more expense. But what I can also say is that people that are in different retirement groups that work together, there's a morale problem there as well. You know, when you're looking at realizing that you can retire at possibly 55, 57 if you don't have a heart attack before, and then, you know, the buddy that's worked and done the exact same things with you all those years has to wait and hopefully make it until they're 65. You don't see too many old police officers, you don't see too many old firemen, you don't see too many old COs for a reason, right? So, those, just for those things, and I think the concern about moving different groups of people into different groups of retirement, I completely agree with that, and I've lived through a couple of those, and generally speaking, we're talking about larger groups, like when teachers try to move into Group 4, that's what those problems, you know, law enforcement tends to want to block, because that changes a lot of other things. The dynamics are completely different. But when you're only adding, I'm just going to throw a number out there, 50 statewide, 100 statewide, it's not going to have a significant impact on the retirement system, and it's not going to have a significant impact on the municipalities. And then whatever they pay in for, it's whatever the town pays in for in Group 4 retirement, the employee contributes the same relative amount. So realistically, I support this as a member of the community. I think it's important to support our public safety. I don't see them suddenly not having much to do anytime soon. It doesn't seem like they're getting any slower. And, you know, we have to take care of the people that put their lives on the line for us, pretty much. I mean, that's the social contract, as far as I'm concerned. So thank you very much for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Certainly. Questions?
I was just going to support Mr. Corain's idea that we postpone this at least for 2 weeks. I think this is a little much for a weekend and a quick email. And also, having sat here for 10 years and having had to try and research things, we really need to do a better job of documenting when we make this decision, so that when our successors come in, they understand what we did. So I think that's more on the board side than it is on anybody else's side, but we do need the answers in writing. I think we need authoritative sources, so that, again, we have this so that when we're not here, somebody is going to know the history of it. And the longer I sit here, the more important I think it is that we do a better job of documenting what decisions we make.
Okay, so is there a motion?
Through the chair. I just want to clarify two things, because I don't know if I made myself clear. I am aware of the MMA reference that Ms. Kavanaugh made. But to Mr. Tetro's point, what the MMA opposes is moving groups of people, and the teachers is a good example. The financial implication and the replacement of moving the teachers from Group 1 to Group 4 would be catastrophic to a community. That's what the MMA opposes. The MMA is not talking about moving paramedics from Group 2 to Group 4, who's in that public safety realm. There's already a move afoot within the Commonwealth to take the Office of Emergency Medical Services, which currently sits under the Department of Public Health, and moving that from the Department of Public Health onto the Executive Office of Public Safety. So I understand Ms. Kavanaugh's point, but I just wanted, I am aware of the reference, but what the MMA opposes is moving groups of employees from one retirement group to another, and I don't think that's what the request is here. And again, just going back to the finances, because I don't know if I understood it, or if I explained it. If the board, the finance committee, the town manager, if they approve 4 new positions to the department, those positions, as it stands right now, are Group 4 positions. So that contribution to the retirement system is a financial factor that's already built in. If the board were to support this, that financial factor does not change. Because if for some reason this was not to pass, then essentially this program becomes dead. And the people that we're looking to put into those positions were going to be Group 4 anyway. So that's what I mean when I say that there's no cost to the community, is because if the town decides that they're going to add 4 firefighters to the department, they're budgeted to be Group 4 positions. So whether those are single role or dual role positions, it does not change the cost factor to the town. That was my point. I just wanted to make sure I was clear on that.
Through the chair. So we don't know what the cost salary-wise is for a single role. We do know what it is for the dual role, correct?
Yeah, currently, we're in conversations with the union on that right now. It's obviously, it's not going to be more, because a single role isn't going to make more than a dual role position. But those are the conversations that are happening at the table now.
'Cause, like, that's something that's important for me to understand as well, because if there is no cost, then any increase in potential Group 4, if that's offset by cost savings on the salary side, that's definitely something that would make me more favorable to that. As I dig deeper, I'll get more information, but understanding what that cost impact is, and then the other question I want to ask you is, you kind of referenced it, but the future of work, it's going to be all single roles in the future where there's only firefighters and only?
No.
No.
No, that's, I'm limited as to what I can say tonight because we're in negotiations. I can say more if we're not on television and, where it's the appropriate time. So some of these questions that you're asking, I have answers to, but I'm not at liberty to talk about them tonight.
Another question, so you're looking to, and I understand, I think what you're saying, you want to hire an EMT paramedic, not an EMT paramedic firefighter. Is that correct? So how does that affect minimum staffing levels at a fire? Aren't there minimum levels that you need to maintain of firefighters?
It's a good question. I mean, honestly, again, I think if the board is going to defer this, which I have no problem with, that's a conversation I think I'd rather have for another day because it's a much lengthier conversation. There's a lot of pieces to this puzzle. So I think if the board is going to defer it, maybe you could get some questions to me, and I'd be more than happy to answer those questions. But I think to dive, for the sake of time, I think diving into that tonight is probably not worth it.
Yeah, so I just want to make clear that, again, I'm asking these questions because I think that when we do make this decision, we need to have all the information possible and make sure that we're making the most informed decision for the community. It's not that I oppose this. At my heart, I support this. But I'm going to make a motion to hold this so that we can get all of those questions answered, so that when we come back, we can make an informed decision that's best for the community.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The chair is a yes as well. Do we have a meeting you would like to bring this back to?
When we have the answers. Again, I don't know what the,
Sure. So do you want questions to go directly to the chief? Do you want to go through town manager?
Correct me if I'm wrong, I think our policy is that we send it to the town manager and he collects and then forwards it all to the chief.
Sure.
Rather than 5 people filling your inbox.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
too. So moving along, we have a request from the Zoning Board of Appeals to discontinue the remote hybrid option for their meetings. Hi. Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
Good evening, thank you. So on behalf of the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Department of Development and Inspectional Services provides administrative support to coordinate the ZBA administrative needs. So our department, coordinates the agendas. We do the advertisement, we collect the applicants' materials, we present them to the board, and we provide support at the meetings. As you may know, in the past several months, we've had some technical difficulties that have occurred at least 2 to 3 meetings. With those technical difficulties, we've had some support through cable access, the IT department, and also professionals to come in to take a look and see what things might have happened. There was something as simple as we used to have a plug behind where you sit, and rolling over that, pulled it out of the wall and shut everything off for the meeting. So we took some steps. You don't have the computers plugged in there any longer. There's new plugs underneath the select board table. You used to see a whole bunch of wires that came across the floor with a lot of tape. We've eliminated all of that. And part of the reason that some of the static happened in previous meetings, we were told, was having all these wires kind of exposed and people step on them. So we've taken, a professional approach to this to try to make changes, and we've made those changes. However, technical problems have still occurred. So the ZBA has had some challenges. We have followed a process to be able to come up with some means if technical difficulties are encountered. The ZBA has added a statement to their agenda, similar to another community, that if technical problems occurred, the meeting would continue on in person. They also took this up for discussion. They asked for it to be on their agenda, which we did add, and they would like to explore the possibility of not offering remote at their meetings. So Mr. Tatro was gracious enough to come to be able to answer for the ZBA directly. I'm happy to answer any questions on the administrative part.
Thank you. Do board members have any questions? Certainly.
So I guess I'm confused, because the Board of Selectmen doesn't direct this process. You're an independent board. We appoint you, but we don't dictate to you, nor have we ever, that you have to have this. So it's not really up to the Board of Selectmen whether your board does this or not. I will tell you personally, I feel that from a public access point, I would be very unhappy if you chose to do that, but I would also respect the fact that I understand the board's position. So I'm certainly going to respect whatever decision the board makes as a co-equal body in the town. I'm not above you. I'm serve with you, not...
And I appreciate that. Thank you.
So, this is not a Board of Selectmen item to say yes or no. I think when we pass this, and Mrs. Goodrich is here so she can fact-check me, but we recommended to those boards and commissions that they adopt, as we did, having this. But there was nothing, and I don't believe the board should be in a position to direct another board as to how you conduct your meetings. But as a resident, I would just say I would be very disappointed if you didn't. But again, I understand that the committee has had a conversation among themselves. It seems like a very good, you have justifiable reasons to be concerned. So I certainly appreciate the thoroughness that the committee is undertaking this process.
Thank you. Would you prefer to all comment, or do you want me to address one at a time, or how would you, I don't want to, I'd like to go with your flow, so to speak.
Certainly. You feel free to comment.
Okay, so thank you very much, and congratulations on your reelection, by the way, sir. But also, I think this is a courtesy as our board, because I think we recognize that, ultimately, you're the board that kind of sits around and makes all the big decisions, and I know we make our decisions as well, but I think I see this as more of a courtesy and sort of an open discussion as well. The reason why we're looking forward to doing this, actually, is because we obviously deal with a lot of different types of plans. We are the stewards of our aquifers, right? So we have a lot of underground plans that we have to look over. We have a lot of different things that protect our wells that we have to be aware of. And this, quite frankly, can be a distraction to some of these. Right now, we obviously have a brand-new bank being built on Southbridge Street. We also have a potential, whatever might be happening at Bentley's, depending on the rest of that process. I'm not, allowed to elaborate on that. It's not my purview. But when we have to have clients like that come back before a board again, it's wasting substantial amount of money on their time. Then that issue becomes a problem where we have employees at the town side who are spending, who knows, 8, 10, 20 hours out of their work week, to resolve this issue with the town attorney. So that's really, it's time consuming, and we just don't have that as we don't have that type of personnel. And as I mentioned in my last set of comments, Auburn's not a small town as much as we still wish it was. We're kind of being overrun whether we like it or not, and I kind of see it as a method of control. But anyway, to have that type of interruption frequently is challenging, and I just feel as though it's detrimental to the community as a whole. And quite frankly, most people I talk to are trying to get away from COVID. They really want to live in a post-COVID world, And just to point out, again, Ms. Coyle here, on her night off, here to help represent, and she provided this information. This is the most recent update from MassGov, and it just says a public body is not required to provide remote access to a meeting if the meeting is held in a physical location that is open and accessible to the public. So, and this is the most updated guidelines on June 28th, 2023. So that was really the reasoning behind. And then we have Ms. Roach, for example, who did a lot of this research as well, and I want to thank her also. She's a business owner in town, a full-time attorney, 2 small children, and now she's taken time out of her evenings, nights, and weekends to research this type of stuff, where we could be spending time reviewing applications, getting businesses in the community into the empty spots, doing things like that. So that's kind of our rationale behind all this.
Certainly.
Yes, sir.
So I only check in on your meetings. I don't actually sit through all of them. But how often do the members participate remotely?
Rarely, honestly. The board is a firm believer in being like you. They like to be present. They like to be engaged with each other. They like to be engaged with the community. They prefer to be on site. So it was only used really a few times when it was probably bad weather during the winter. And even as far as people calling in now, there's very few even people calling into the remotes for us anymore.
I think, as Mr. Carpenter said, I don't know if it's our purview to go over it. I like the remote access. It helps me to be able to chime in when I want to, and other residents as well. And I think if the language is changed appropriately enough, then there isn't that need to go back. Understanding that technology is an issue for all of us. We use the same room. We've experienced some of those same issues. And I think we're all committed to making sure they don't happen as often as they have happened.
True.
But we also can't dictate who's on the other end and if they have an issue.
Right.
So I understand that. I just like the accessibility aspect of that. But again, it's on your board.
And can I say, if you go back and watch the conversation that the board and I had, I stand with you. I said the same thing. I was concerned with the ADA compliance, all those types of things. But quite frankly, we never had any of those issues before COVID and before this was implemented, and it was really due for COVID. And fortunately, we don't have social distancing anymore. Masks are gone, so.
No, I think I was just saying accessibility, like and some of us are a little bit more nerdy and might be on vacation and want to pop in and see. Or if something was on your agenda and I wasn't able to get to the meeting, but I wanted to hear it, maybe I don't have anything directly at that moment, but something might come up during that, and if I was available, I'd join.
And it will still be broadcast live. It will still be broadcast on Act TV for replay. People can still send in comments because the agenda is always posted beforehand, and all the applications are made public. So if anybody has any concerns, they've always been able to, in the past, send an email, write a letter. We always accept written letters from people, and in fact, I read them into the record when that happens. So I think we've probably adequately, at least in my mind, covered the bases to make sure that the town is not liable or have any issues.
Yeah, I just wanted to agree with Mr. Carpenter. When I read over the policy that was attached, it was clear to me that it was a recommendation only, that you certainly have your own ability to decide for your board. I will say that, again, similar to my colleagues, for me, transparency is not just a buzzword, it's important.
Absolutely.
I want to, I think all of our boards and commissions need to operate in the open and do everything we can to engage the community, to bring them in. And I know it started because of COVID, but I think it's been one of the strongest benefits that communities have had since COVID, that it has allowed more people to take part, whether, you're at home sick, but you still are in a butter and you want to be able to call in, or you're on vacation, and you want to be able to call in and still voice your concerns about the unnamed coffee location that may be going at Bentley's. That allows you the flexibility to do that. But again, it is certainly, up to your board to make the decision that works best for your board. I was going to ask that at a minimum, because like Mr. Chambers, I'm a nerd and I watch all your meetings after the fact or during the live ones.
You're the one person I can finally identify then.
Normally after the fact, that you continue to at least have them broadcast via, Auburn Community Television, recorded, available on Facebook, et cetera, just so, the community can follow along if you do decide to move away from the hybrid. But certainly, I don't think it's a decision for our board to impose on you.
Okay.
That's
And
it.
again, I think this was a courtesy. We wanted to make sure we weren't we didn't want to make the decision on our own and then find out that we should have come before you. I'd rather be, as they say, what is it? I don't want to do the beg for forgiveness, ask for permission thing. I'd rather just come and do it correctly the first time.
So let me confirm, now, the ZBA meets in this room?
Correct.
Okay. So, Ms. Kasnovich, question, how many other committees meet in this room? And does everyone else have the same problems with hybrid meetings? The Select Board, Finance Committee, and who else?
To the best of my knowledge, from time to time, we hit a bump in the road.
Right.
We've all experienced that. I think what is important to note is we have a level of support, at least at the Board of Selectmen's meeting, because we meet at 6 o'clock on Mondays when we typically close up. We have a level of support here to start up the meeting and make sure things are running smoothly. In the case of the ZBA, they're meeting on a different night, and they don't have that accessibility to our town employees for that technological support. And at times that presents a
I know that we've...
Probably not a good idea.
Sorry, did someone just join the meeting? Are you wanting to be recognized? Or could you?
Civil violations, not just criminal violations of federal election law. That's what the prosecutors asked.
Looks like they're on mute.
I know at the Finance Committee, we've certainly had, especially when we first started hybrid meetings, certainly had a lot of different, we were right here using the same computer, and had a lot of different problems that would arise. So there was certainly a learning curve to it. So it's too bad that, other boards can meet here and use the hybrid, and your committee's not able to. So that's concerning.
Well, it's certainly able to, but without really elaborating on too much more of it, all right, so what I can tell you is this. We have the same individual who's made 4 complaints. They're the same person that you're going to be dealing with next, as a matter of fact, on your agenda. That person is not in a butter. That person is not agreed by any decisions. This is arbitrary and capricious on their part, quite frankly, and it's a waste of my time, it's a waste of the community's time, it's a waste of the town side's time substantially, and it's a financial burden to the community as well. So, trying to give it an understanding and not really go into those things, but, that's the matter of fact about it, right? So, if you go on and do a simple Google search, you can see where, if it says remote hybrid meetings, how to hack into them, how to mess with them. So if I'm on this right now and I log into the GoToMeeting on this phone, because of all of the amplifiers and cell towers in this area, this is going to overpower that system, and that's what's happening. So when I come to this room, and if I want to tamper with this meeting and I sign into that, I can overpower this, which is going to interrupt the feed, which is going to give them the authorization to make a complaint, quite frankly. And that's pretty much what's happening. And we've had this, I wasn't here last month, and we had another second complaint. I was there for the first one. So it's not even as if that you could certainly blame it on me for being a clumsy technological person, but I do okay. But, so that's the reality of it. We're wasting time and effort to entertain one person, quite frankly.
So shouldn't that be addressed, the issues with this one person, rather than changing the whole policy?
I don't have the authority to do that, ma'am. I would not disagree with you,
Yeah.
but I don't have authority to do that. This person has also come to the meeting for the last, randomly in the last 20 years and sits there and takes pictures and, uses a $3,000 camera to try to intimidate people. It's just what he does. It's just how it is.
Yeah.
So, this is becoming an entertainment venue for the disgruntled of the town. And quite frankly, I don't think we have to succumb to those people anymore. I think
Right.
we're over that.
You're right. So therefore, why should we change the policy because of one person? I agree with you.
And I see your point of it as well. Believe me, this isn't I don't see this as a competition to discuss which is the right way to do it. I'd rather have a frank conversation that, You know, we have somebody in the community that it takes pleasure in disrupting government flow.
Madam Chair, I have one more question.
Sure.
Through you to the town manager. The ZBA is using language to cover them. Has that been vetted by council? Has this
I can
anything
actually
to
answer
do-
that. It has, in fact, if you don't mind, through the chair, is that okay?
Sure.
So Ms. Roach did her due diligence as an attorney. It was sent through the Department of DDIS. It was verified through, you know, the wording was all what they wanted. It was forwarded to the attorney. All of those comments and questions, concerns were brought back, and that's how we were able to put the notification on that states, you know, if there's any technical difficulties, that kind of thing. So that was already all done as well.
So,
It's handled by people at much higher level than I.
follow-up question to that, because I do know we have an open meeting law complaint form. Has any of this gone before the Attorney General? Have any of these things been sustained, any of these open meeting law violations? If we have wording and we're making it clear, because I honestly, we can say that we didn't have a problem before COVID. We did, we just didn't recognize it. It's like I hear a lot of times with school-age children, some people will say, well, kids didn't have problems. Well, no, they did, we just didn't have the tools. And with the difficulty with the paratransit system that we have, it's very insufficient, so people can't necessarily get up here. So I want to do everything we can and give you the tools necessary to keep this as an option, but also cover you from, and the town from having to deal with, you know, complaints, which, you know, we can all disagree as to what motive this individual might have. I'm certainly not going to get involved in that, but...
To be frank, I wasn't even going to bring that up. That wasn't part of the conversation. It was just a professional conversation between, you know, the two boards, so to speak, and I'm here to represent myself and the board. But I don't believe in just, you know, mixing words, to tell you the truth. You gotta be honest and tell people what's going on so they know how to fix it. And, you know, one way or the other, we're wasting time, we're wasting businesses' time, we're wasting community members' time. You know, people come here and they have a $60,000 addition they want to put on their home, let's say, for instance, you know, and then it gets dragged out, they have to come back, they have to reapply. That's money out of working people's pockets and time.
But my point, Mr. Tatro, is if this is vetted by council
Yes.
and by the powers that be at the state,
Yes.
then we can file as many of these as we want, as long as we've done what we need and we have their permission to do what you're doing, then we don't need to take it off.
Okay. I understand.
And you
Yep.
don't need to redo meetings or anything else. If this is, as you say, been vetted by all the appropriate people, this to me is a non-issue, because if this is a legal statement that we're making, then why are we redoing meetings and all this other?
So can I just answer that? I'm going to hand it over to you real quick. So first of all, I just want to be clear that I cannot state that that is what's going on in terms of what the Attorney General's office believes or what they look at. They see the complaint at face value on paper, they investigate it, they make a determination. They're not going to get into the fact if some person is making frivolous complaints. They're going to take each complaint at face value regardless, and then they expect us to respond accordingly through our attorney and make corrective action. We're the ones responsible for the public, you know, the public availability.
So, Mr. Kazanovich, if I may, we haven't run this by the Attorney General's office, the attorney of the day, whatever it is, as far
Well,
as
I could
language.
tell you, over the course of the last year, even when we started the remote participation hybrid model, we got bombarded with a number of complaints from an individual who was living down in Alabama. And they were coming every week, and it was very annoying. The Attorney General's office knew about this. Our town council had discussions with the Attorney General. Mr. Tatro is correct. They take each complaint at face value, and they evaluate that based upon the content or the complaint submitted.
But my question is to the verbiage that the committee is uttering. So, with all due respect to Ms. Roach, she's not town council, so, and I don't know what her particular specialty in law is. So, you know, you do need somebody who's a municipally trained attorney to kind of do certain things. but have we gotten any sort of guidance from the Attorney General's office as to whether the language we're asking this committee to utter is valid? Because if it isn't, then there's no point in doing it.
Unfortunately, that doesn't stop anyone from filing a complaint. That does go.
I mean, just to, maybe I can put it a different way. First, I want to thank Attorney Roach for the time in putting this language together and finding what other communities have done. Can we ask our attorney and to have that conversation with the Attorney General to see if the language provided that the ZBA is now using meets the open meeting law requirement, so that if we are doing hybrid meetings and something happens, the board is protected by having that language on the agenda so that they can keep rolling and don't have to come back and redo their meeting again. And if it comes back that language is valid, then can we start putting that on every agenda for every board that's doing hybrid meetings so that we're all covered going forward?
I'm not, Darlene, did you have a conversation with Attorney Hagan relative to that proposed language?
So I think there's two separate conversations here, and I just want to clarify. For the request by ZBA to discontinue the remote portion, that was a request from ZBA that we add to the agenda. They fully discussed it and took a vote to recommend discontinuing that. And to the point that it's coming to the BOS, the reason for that is because you had an existing policy in place. So therefore, because you had a policy, we thought that that request, as Mr. Tatro had explained, was a courtesy to go to the board for your review to be able to put input on it. So it sounds like, you're providing input. I understand it's still the ZBA purview to decide what they want to do based on the state's guidance that you may be able to, they encourage remote, but the board does not have to continue remote. For the statement that is on the agenda, that has been discussed with Attorney Hennigan. That was meant to be on there temporarily to basically not run into another problem at another ZBA meeting, where if we had technical difficulties, because honestly, we had technical difficulties at several meetings, consecutive meetings. And so trying to take steps, Attorney Megan Roche, who is part of the board, she did some research. That was a suggestion to the ZBA, and that was a step that they wanted to add to the agenda. As far as putting this on every agenda going forward forever, I would want Attorney Hennigan, our town council, to be able to provide input on that. So I hope that answers the question. The open meeting law complaints is a separate issue, and for those, our department does provide administrative support. I can tell you that we have already handled one. One is complete. The response is complete and sent to the AG. There is another complaint that we're dealing with actively right now that I can't really speak to, but two separate, hopefully, two separate topics. Hopefully I answered your questions.
So without knowing the board's position relative to the item that is before you tonight, I think that was a temporary suggestion by Megan to cover the board in the event there was some technical difficulties between the time you make that decision and if there was an occurrence again. We can take it a step further to find out if that language is appropriate enough to cover the town in terms of future complaints. I don't think we've taken it that far down the road yet.
So I would just say, as a caution, that board members shouldn't be doing that, because by her doing that, she's now put herself in the town at a potential liability unintentionally by suggesting language that hasn't been vetted.
So
I just want
the
to,
temporary addition to that was actually Miss Roach decided to do that after seeing that it was on several other communities' papers. So she did her research. Worcester primarily is using it on all of their meetings, in fact, is what she really went to. But a couple of other towns that are experiencing technical difficulties, I'm just putting that disclaimer on there as well.
I just want to clarify, along with what Mr. Tatro just said, I believe Director Coyle just said that this temporary language was vetted by Attorney Hennigan, who okayed it on a temporary basis, but gave no opinion on a permanent basis. And I think what we're asking for is to go back for a permanent basis
Right.
to find out. But I just want to make sure that we're clear that although Attorney Roach came up with this language through research, it was temporarily okayed by Attorney Hennigan. So I don't think that, I want to make sure the record is clear that Attorney Roach has not put anyone at any liability. I would also just caution everybody here to not discuss open meeting law complaints, current, past, because none of that's on our agenda, and I don't think anybody wants another complaint filed against us for it.
Valid point, sir. Thank you.
So I will make a point that while we do have a remote participation policy, it does allow each board to make that determination for themselves. And while we appreciate you allowing us to opine on this, it is certainly within your right to end remote participation if you choose. I, like other board members, like to watch meetings. But, you know, if I can't make it in person, it's certainly something I could watch later.
Okay, so, and I will certainly bring your comments back to the board, no question, and have them vote on it again and make sure that, you know, they understand all the questions and concerns that we brought up here this evening as well. You know, again, I like the community access, I understand, but I have to, you know, even though I'm the chair of the board, I follow what my board does as well. And if they're not satisfied with it, I have to, you know, work with them as well. So I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Oh, certainly.
Thank you.
Sorry.
One more, that's right, one more comment.
Yes.
Mrs. Kasnovich, can I ask you to follow through on the technical difficulties that are referenced in the ZBA email to try to address that issue? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And not for Mr. Tatro, but can we get that legal opinion from Attorney Hennigan on the permanent use of this disclaimer for any boards and commissions that are using hybrid?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next item is an open meeting law complaint relative to the select board meeting on April 22nd, 2024. This is currently with town attorney, and we can discuss it once we have his recommendations. So it's included in the packet. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. So we're moving along to select board general items. There is a seasonal open air license for the Friends of Auburn Public Library's annual book sale. Is there someone? Great. Could you just give your name and address?
Yes, I'm Linda Data, 16 Goddard Drive in Auburn. I'm the president of the Friends of the Auburn Library, and I'm here for a permit for open air book sale on June 22nd and September 14th in the back of the library from 10 to 12:30.
Okay. Do board members have any questions?
I just have one quick question. In the event that there is inclement weather, is the Merriam Room available? Will you be able to move
I've
it?
tried to work that out with Jean, with the director of the library, and if it's possible, we can go in, and it's easy enough now to get the books out.
Yeah,
because
well,
they're in
I just would hate
carts,
to
no.
see all the effort that you go through, and
Yeah,
people look forward to it, and of course,
They
people are going
do.
to the beach.
They
They're
do.
going to want to buy their beach
And
reads.
it's so much, it takes us 13 minutes to get all the books into the library because we have the carts.
Thank you for asking that. Sorry, Jean Collins, excuse me, Director of the Library. We're sort of moving forward to kind of a contingency plan for every book sale. One of the last ones, it was raining. We didn't have a program there, and I said, well, we didn't go through the board, but I think this would be okay for us to move it inside, and actually was very productive. So moving forward, I think pretty much any time we work together on the schedule when they want to have the book sales, and I make sure I don't schedule a program at that time. So if there is inclement weather, or it's too cold or anything, we have devised ways to get all the books up there into the Merriam Room. Works pretty well. So, but thank you for asking that.
No.
I make a motion that we approve the license provided that all applicable requirements of the state and town and any of its departments, boards, and commissions have been fulfilled. Said license is subject to all the conditions stated upon it. Failure to comply with any and all of the conditions shall invalidate the license and render it null and void, and with the conditions recommended by the DCG to be placed on the license.
Second.
All those in favor?
Madam Chair, before we do that, can I just make sure that, and if we need a motion to amend, I'll make a motion to amend, that license includes the library parking lot or the Merriam Room, so that there is the flexibility by the Friends as well as the library board director, without any questions on legality, that they can just go ahead and do it and know that they have the board support to do it.
It just says location. It just says.
Yeah, so,
The agenda just says library parking lot, which is for the application, so I just want to amend it and make sure that it's clear for both locations.
sure, is there a
Say that it's, you're talking about the parking lot where everybody parks. We're in the back of the building. It doesn't have anything to do with the lot.
Right, no, I understand. This is the application identifies the parking lot. I just want to make sure our license identifies the parking lot where you set up or the Merriam Room to give
Yes.
you the flexibility to move into either one.
Thank you, appreciate it. And come to the book sale, that's pretty good.
Absolutely.
Is there a second on the amendment?
Second.
All those in favor of the motion? Amended motion?
Aye.
Opposed? The chair is a yes as well.
May I also make a motion that we vote to waive the fee for the open-air license as requested by the applicant?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The chair is a yes as well. So we are moving on to gift acceptances.
Madam Chair, before we move from that item, could I request at our next regular meeting that we have a Board of Selectmen item to amend our policy related to the agenda to include community groups being placed on the agenda after public comment? And obviously, that would require a vote of the board, but
Yeah, we can add that request to the next agenda.
thank you.
Okay, so gift acceptances, there are 3 for the fire department. Is there a motion?
And make a motion that we accept with gratitude a donation for $15 from Shaw's, a donation for $75 from David S. and Jeannie J. Austin, and finally for Kathy and Max McCormick in the amount of $100.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The chair is a yes as well. Our next item is the discussion and potential vote on summer meeting schedule. Historically, I think we've gone down to 1 meeting for the summer months. Does anybody have any questions or preferences or thoughts?
I think we always had 2 in June, and then we had 1 in July, and then we usually took August. We didn't, and it's always subject to the chair, so if we have a lot of items. But I would make a motion that we continue that practice. We have our 2 regular meetings in June, have a meeting in July somewhere in the middle of the month, just so that we can straddle it, and take off August, provided that there is a business that requires our immediate attention.
When would our
So,
normal July meeting fall?
So if I may, we are preparing to go out for a bond issue and a sale in August. So a lot of that is going to require some votes of the board. So that has not been, those dates have not been nailed down yet. We have to borrow, I think, before August 17th. So there will be, I would suggest if we can coordinate that and bring in a schedule on the 13th that helps us, on June 13th, that helps us meet those deadlines, give us a little time to prepare for that.
I'll withdraw my motion and make a motion that we carry this over to the next meeting.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The chair is a yes as well. We are moving along to 11A, the Perry Place 40B issues and concerns.
So, Madam Chair, members of the board, I did prepare a draft memo letter to Mass Housing that identifies all the issues that we collected through a series of discussions, review of memos, as well as some of the items that were addressed and raised at the site visit when Mass Housing came to Auburn. The letter makes reference to a June 13th date and a board vote. I think originally I wanted to get this to you as early as possible, knowing that we had a couple of weeks to make any changes, any modifications relative to what was pulled together and prepared. I don't know if you had a chance to review that, but certainly we're welcoming any feedback that the board may have. So if there is some other things we need to incorporate into this memo, we'd have time to do that.
Board members have any questions or comments, or would we like to?
Make a comment that this was well put together. I appreciate the effort that it took to get to this point, and I know as a board, we went through many meetings, and I think, and again, I don't know if others have comments, but it summarizes, to the best of my recollection, all the issues that were presented and brought up, so thank you.
It also provides Mass Housing with the draft and final developers agreement that we were expecting to have signed. And that identifies a lot of what is incorporated into the letter as well.
Are there any other questions, comments?
I may have
So-
some in, I haven't had a chance to look at it, I apologize.
So the plan is to bring this back for a vote on the 13th of June, which we could then send off by our deadline on June 28th. And asking that the board review and identify any holes or any items that should have been incorporated at this point.
Can I just ask, we keep referencing the 13th of June, which is a Thursday. Do we mean the 10th of June, which is the second Monday?
Oh,
It's the 10th.
We wanted to test if we met on Thursday, if we would have technical problems.
I don't know why I put the 3rd. So the 10th.
I think you were referencing May 13th, which was our May meeting on the 13th.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Moving along, we have no table items, we have no member items. We do have, Mr. Tatro, you had put as a second public comment, where you, please feel free to make another, you're all set? Okay, great. There are April 22nd
Through the chair.
meeting minutes?
There's another comment.
Oh, sorry, please.
Thank you. I didn't sign up because I didn't expect such a lively conversation about the remote participation. But as a longtime meeting nerd, I just want to offer a few thoughts. I want to take open meeting law violations and technical issues out of the equation, because I do watch an awful lot of these meetings. And while I agree that public access is so important, I absolutely believe that anyone who has something significant that really means a lot to them, whether they're in a butter or mostly a butters when it comes to ZBA and planning board, they'll get to the meeting or they'll send a letter. What I am seeing more often than not, it's the applicants who aren't coming in to the ZBA and planning board meetings. It's their attorneys, it's their engineers, And if anything, I think they should be required to be in person. So I don't know, just sitting back there thinking for a few minutes, I don't know if this is possible, and even for the Board of Selectmen, you know, at least at the very least, require that applicants be in person. It's very difficult following a planning board meeting or a zoning board of appeals meeting when you don't know who's speaking, you can't see who's speaking because they may have a small, you know, they're doing a PowerPoint presentation or whatever. And it's very frustrating when you're following these meetings, not knowing what's happening. So at least for these regulatory board meetings, I would encourage them to require the applicants to be in person if that's possible. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. So we're back to number 15, the meeting minutes. There are April 22nd meeting minutes in our packets. Are there any changes or corrections? Seeing none, I will accept them as read. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The chair is yes as well. We are adjourned.